Hello gamers, Magehammer here for another Magehammer's Musings, where today I'm going to be talking about how I play solo when it comes to role-playing games. Now, this isn't a video about games that are distinctly designed to be solo, like Four Against Darkness, 2D6 Dungeon, D100, Ironsworn, all those games that are built, Four Against Mars, some of which are featured on my channel. This is not about those games. This is about how I run a role-playing game that's meant to be played face-to-face, but I do it solo. So, I felt it was time to kind of put my method out there so that people out there can either reject it, discuss it, ignore it, embrace it, maybe take a couple ideas from it to add to your own solo role-playing. However it is you like to solo role-play, you do it. This is how I do it. So, I call it Magehammer's method, at least for this video. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to choose an RPG. Now, I have featured several role-playing games on my channel. Played solo, Castle Crusades, Tiny Cthulhu, Basic Fantasy RPG, my own designs, Delves and Dangers RPG, also my 6 Dice Fantasy and my 6 Dice Wasteland. So you can go check those out if you're interested to see how those run, how I run those solo. How I chose those. Then I have a whole series of where I choose a different system each time. You can check out that playlist as well. And I had several different kind of role-playing systems in there as well. So, but you got to choose an RPG. Currently, I'm choosing the games that I've designed. But in the past, as you can see, I've chosen others. But the one that I had the most success with, I believe, is Basic Fantasy RPG. It is free on the Basic Fantasy RPG website as a PDF download. Chris Gonnerman, the guy that runs it, wanted to create like a open source game, and he did. It is old school, but also can be modified to be as new school or old school as you want it to be. So I really enjoyed playing that. I've gotten really good feedback on that. I think it's a very popular system, and I think it's one that you might want to try out. However, you can choose any RPG you want. I think Rules Light is best. The fewer rules that get in the way of the solo role playing, the fewer things you have to juggle while you're playing. But any will do. So the second thing you need to do is choose a world or not. I choose worlds that I design. I've been playing pretty much in the same world for the past, I don't know, 40 years. I designed a game, or I designed a world in middle school to put my fiction in, and then D&D came out, and I started running the games in that. And then when 3rd edition came out, 2000, I came out with the other side of the world, and that's the Swordlands, which pretty much exclusively is where my videos take place. I think I have a map here. I had a map here. I was all prepared. There it is. And so I'm going to put that upside down. The Swordlands, I mapped out the world. I have a gazetteer. It has a history, and I pretty much base all of my adventures here in the Swordlands because I prefer to do that. However, you can base it in any world you want. Forgotten Realms, Mystara, just any world. You could base it in a world from fiction. Whatever you want to do, you could choose a world. Or you don't have to. Worlds help you with the narrative. As you know, I prefer my own, but any world will do, or none will do. You can have the narrative create the world for you. One of the strategies that people talk about with role-playing games I've heard about in the past is just start a village, few areas around it, and start expanding from there as your adventurers go out into the world. I prefer to start with a map, and then I kind of imagine what's going on the map, and that's how I go and do that. However, this isn't about world building. This is about playing a game and having fun. Next thing I do is I write a scenario. Okay? Here's an example of my Basic Fantasy role-playing game, Magehammer Solo Campaign. Just a couple paragraphs outlining what I want it to do. Then, and then I have the main characters, the main players, and then I have kind of, as things go on, what's going to be happening and what the goals are. I put that all on one piece of paper, and then I go from there. However, if you don't want to start a scenario, you just want to get started right out of the gate and just see where your characters take you, you can come up with all kinds of ideas, brainstorm from all ideas. You can use random tables if you need to. Paul Bimler's Solo Adventures Toolbox is a great tool to use. Full disclosure, he sent me a version of it, and I really think it's a good way to get started. It doesn't necessarily match my way of solo play, but for the initial ideas, if you're not coming up with anything during your brainstorming sessions, it's a really great place to go and help you do it. But there are all kinds of generators out there that you can use to help you come up with a random quest and get out into the action and get out there moving. But I really was impressed with Paul's Solo Adventures Toolbox, which is on Drive-Thru RPG. The next thing I think that I like to do for my role-playing games is I like to establish a MacGuffin. I'm sure you've heard that term before. If you have not, I believe it was first coined by Alfred Hitchcock, and the MacGuffin is the thing that the characters want or need to find, and it almost really doesn't matter what it is, but it drives the action. So you choose MacGuffin. So in my Magehammer solo, my basic fantasy game, it was the shattered crown of Tranastal, and it was broken in many pieces, and they had to go find all the different pieces of it. So the next thing you need to do is establish a main antagonist who has the MacGuffin or who is trying to stop them from getting the MacGuffin or whatever, and you come up with that. And of course, just like anything else, you just brainstorm. You can pull characters from all kinds of media and mash them together. You can roll up randomly if you want to use random tables. You can do anything you want. Base it on your favorite teacher or your least favorite teacher from the past, whatever you want to do. You can pull those ideas from anywhere, and then establish other major players. The henchmen of the main villain, his mooks, I guess, for lack of a better term. Also, there might be other groups that are trying to get the MacGuffin or stop people from getting the MacGuffin, and throw those into the mix and have those come up and pop out whenever you want them to. And then establish a working outline of the story. And I say working outline because that paper I just showed you, this paper here for my solo campaign, this is my working outline. This is all I worked from. That's all I wrote. I wrote down my ideas where I thought it would go. And that's the great thing with random tables and so forth when you're playing. The story narrative can go pretty much anywhere that you hadn't expected it to. And people talk about wanting surprise in solo role-playing games. And I think random tables and so forth really do bring that about regardless of how you do it. Next, you got to create your characters. I prefer to do 3 to 4 for my adventures. I like to have some interaction between the characters. I like to make voices and have them talk to each other, just so that there's a little bit of extra, more than just me sitting here droning on about what's happening. I like the characters to kind of participate occasionally. I don't, got to find a balance for that and what works for you. Some of you may not be comfortable doing voices. I get it. You don't have to. It's just what I do. And I think it helps me immerse in the action and have get to really know the characters. I use note cards. I actually use half note cards here. These characters are from my solo run. And I put the stats on these little cards and I have next to me. They don't take up too much table space, and they have all the pertinent information. Originally, for these guys, I did actual character sheets, and then I transferred character sheets to here, but as I go forward into my other games, I pretty much just put them right on here now. These become my character sheets. I find that very handy. They're off to the side, and you can use them as markers. You can put status tokens on them, whatever it is that you want to do. And you can make them as detailed as you like or not. Like these, they don't really have their equipment on them, but they have the weapons, their armor, and their relevant stats on them. So that really helps speed up play. Next, you got to choose your randomizers. So a word about oracles. I look at oracles, and to me, they don't fit into my style of role-playing, so I don't use an oracle. I do use decision-making die, I guess, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But I don't use the yes and yes but and ands and yes and whatever. I don't, that just doesn't jive with my style of play. I prefer things to move a little bit faster, make the decisions on the fly. Now, you may not be comfortable with making decisions on the fly. I have been dungeon mastering and game mastering for, for 30, 40 years. So I'm pretty much used to, you know, I have a toolbox in my head of things that the way I want things to go sometimes, and sometimes I don't, and that's where the randomizer comes in. But I'm going to talk about that. But in Oracle, I don't, they just don't jive with my style of play. But they are, apparently, they are a very valuable tool for many, many, many solo role players out there, because almost every video I watch on solo role-playing game has an Oracle. So if that's something that you're interested in, go out there. I mean, I guess Mythic, first and second edition, there's a bit debate about which one's better, but Mythic, I guess, is the granddaddy of them all, of Oracles. I know that Paul Bimler's solo pages have a very simple Oracle on one of his one-page products that he has. You could use that. I've seen other solo role players out there that have just like a note card and it just has 1d6, yes, but, yes, but, whatever. So, you know, the Oracle can be as complicated as you want it to be. If you want to do Oracle, do it. I don't use them, but I use something kind of similar to take its place, I guess. Because when I solo role play, I am both player and dungeon master, and I can shift between those roles effortlessly, and I don't think everybody can, and some people can, and maybe you can and you've never tried, and I say give it a try. You know, they're always like, the Oracle takes the place of the game master, and I'm like, yeah, but I think your brains are advanced enough that you can do. Gamers' brains are awesome, so I think you could probably switch between those two roles. I don't know. That's up to you, and you know, your mileage may vary. You can decide whether maybe you think you're a rubbish game master. Maybe you think you're, you know, and I say you're probably not giving yourself enough credit, but you know, that's up to you. Anyway, I think you could do it. But then again, if you want to use an Oracle, go for it. I mean, apparently they work for millions of people, so go for it. So, other randomizers, though, I do like surprise in my role-playing games. So what I've helped design, or what have helped me use, is this Axebane's Deck of Many Dungeons. And I know other solo role players have talked about this tool before. This, for my money, is the best gaming money I've spent. And I bought it on GameCrafter.com. It's for dungeon generations, and it has where the monsters appear. It even has a little table about what the monsters are. If you're stuck for a quest, the opening thing has quest ideas, and you can just roll on that. It comes with a card that has other random quest generator. It has random trap generators, minor carried treasure, NPC quest items, characters' names, and all comes in the deck and the expansion. It is just, I mean, it's just the best. I use it pretty much exclusively for my dungeon generation. And the thing I like about the most is it tells you where the monsters appear, right? So I don't have to do that myself. Random contents of a room. If there's no monster, they give you an idea about that. Look, more monsters, and they give you a table right there on the card. They also do the same thing for traps, trying to find a trap. Yeah. Trap here, and it can tell you different kinds of traps randomly generated right off the cards. Like, this is like an entire dungeon crawl game rolled into one product. I just think it changed my solo gaming life when I discovered them. Because that pretty much handles most everything when I'm delving in a dungeon. If I'm out in the wilderness, I use encounter tables. I use my own encounter tables. It tells you where the monster comes, but I don't use their monster tables, mostly because I feel they're a bit too random for me. You know, so also, yeah. So I use the monster skull icon for where monsters are, but I use my own encounter tables, especially depending on the system I'm using. So for basic fantasy, the core rulebook has built-in encounter tables, and I just use these if I'm out in the wilderness. They also have a dungeon table in the core rulebook. I have also made up my own to fit my preferences of what kind of monsters come. Here's the upper levels, and then the middle levels, a little bit stronger, random D66 tables I've created myself using the bestiary from my 6th Dice Fantasy, which is pretty much identical to my Delves and Dangers, and my own treasure table. So I made my own. You can do that to fit whatever it is that you want to do, or you can use and when I use Castle Crusades, I use their random tables I found on Drive-Thru RPG, but then I just I fashion, I get rid of monsters that I don't want to use that are in their system that may not be in my world, and you can pretty much do whatever it is that you want. But I use encounter tables, I guess, random tables. Now, yes, sometimes in my outline I need to have an encounter with somebody, so like I'll designate a thing on my encounter table, one of my encounters, to be that particular person shows up then. But that's still random as to when the one bad guy is going to show up. And now, decision maker. So I know, I guess I do kind of use an oracle, but I don't use it for everything. I guess it could be considered an oracle. But if the characters are trying to decide between going 2-3 different ways, I just roll a die, or I have them roll a die, and that determines which direction they go if they don't have any other information. Because those are the kind of decisions I think the character should make that the game master shouldn't necessarily influence. Like, I know I know that if they go this way, something's going to happen. So I'm like, no, let the character decide. I'll let the dice do it. Or if they're encountering something, is the thing going to be hostile? If I feel like I've had too many battle encounters, let's see if it's going to be friendly or something. So I'll roll a d6 and I'll just assign 1 or 2, they are friendly. 4, 5, 6, they attack or whatever. But I just use a d6, and it's fast and it moves, and I don't have to do a chart. I just say, okay, on a 1, 2, or on a 1, 2, 3, this happens. On a 4, 5, 6, this happens. Boom, boom. Or a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one of those 3 things is going to happen. Boom. Roll a die, move on. I don't keep a table in front of me because I have enough going on in solo role playing that I don't want to have to deal with that. All right, so the next step is that I use in my videos are miniatures. Now, these are the characters from my basic fantasy RPG that I played. When I first started role playing on video, I had characters out to represent them, but I didn't really create. I mean, I created the dungeon through Axbane's Dungeon. They went in. I think it was my Castle Crusades series, and I've just pretty much described the action as it was going on, and I think that worked pretty well. But then I'm like, you know what? This is a video, so there should be giving my people something to look at. So when I started doing my basic fantasy RPG, I pretty much started working with miniatures. Now, I found this really cool gridded mat on Etsy. It's a stick mat. It has, you put something down on it, it doesn't really move very much. So that's pretty fun. And I use wilderness tiles that I've had from decades ago for the Dungeons and Dragons tile series. So I use these wilderness tiles, the 2-sided, when they go out into the wilderness. That way, I got a nice backdrop that kind of reflects what's going on and simulates what's going on there. And then I'll lay out the cards. And then if we get into a combat encounter, I found these, I guess they call them popsicle sticks. They're not really popsicle sticks. I found these craft sticks on Amazon because I didn't want to have to sit there and draw a room. I didn't want to have to go and find exactly the right tiles, so I found these sticks that kind of delineate the dungeon room for you, or the dungeon hallway, and they do it quickly. So then I can just plop the miniatures down and then have them be in the hallway. So that's sped up my games and also added a nice visual element for my viewers. So that's how I use miniatures. You don't have to use miniatures. I have been a proponent of theater of the mind role-playing, even in my face-to-face games, pretty much my entire career till 3rd edition, where you're forced to use miniatures. But then they came out with pre-painted miniatures. I was never a paint my miniatures kind of guy. When those pre-painted miniatures came out, it changed my life. I've said that in many videos. But I have since done Warhammer and painted quite a few miniatures. But at the early stages and mid stages of my role-playing career, I wasn't in the mood for painting miniatures. And then soon as 5th edition came out and they said miniatures are optional, I'm like, yes, theater of the mind's the way to go. So I've been playing theater of mind D&D now for the whole entire run of 5th edition. And any other role-playing game I play, I prefer not to use miniatures. I only use them for my videos because it helps my audience visualize things. Unless I'm playing a miniatures game, which I also have many videos of miniatures games on my channel as well. I do enjoy miniatures games. That's my thought. Like, if I want to play a miniatures game, I'm going to play a miniatures game. I want to play a role-playing game. I don't want to have to worry about all my miniatures everywhere. I just want to play it. Unless I'm making a video playing solo for my viewers. So that's my thoughts on miniatures. So I use them, but that's why I use them. You don't have to if you're interested in following Mage Hammer's method. Okay, now, how I role play when I'm not on camera. Okay, so for years, I tried to find a way to play solo role playing that just scratched my itch to play role playing games when we couldn't get together as a group. So I used to, and I think I talked about this in one of my Castle Crusade videos. I would buy a journal, like this is Castle Crusades, and I would write up background on each of the characters that I created. This is journaling. I know journaling is one niche of solo role playing. And this is how I do it when I play off camera sometimes. Sometimes I just plop down the deck of many dungeons and just go and don't worry about it. But then I give an introduction to the storyline. I have a storyline in my mind already. I tend to... sometimes for this, I use an actual published adventure. Sometimes I do it randomly, but a lot of times I use it, or I write my own adventure and then take the characters through it. So I do it like the old example of role-playing games, like Dungeons & Dragons Moldvay Edition. They had that awesome example of play. I became obsessed with those. I was like, that is cool, because now it really shows you how to play. Because remember, this was in the time before YouTube, back in 1982, or the internet even. You couldn't just go on and say, oh, how do you play this crazy game? But watching those examples, or reading those example of plays really captured my imagination. Like, this game really is cool. So, and that's how you play it. Okay, so I basically do that. I call it the example of play solo RPG system. I basically take on the role of in this case, Castle Keeper for Castle Crusades. I write out exactly what I would be saying if I were the dungeon master sitting at a table explaining this to them. I write it down. Then it's like a script. Broldor is the character that is here, and he talks, and then the players also talk though. The players also talk. I want to walk up there, but I also role play it out. I role play it out. So like, good son, my lady, welcome in peace and mean you no harm. The CK says, the two children scamper behind their mother's skirts at the sight of you all. The mother says, may I help you then? And Swendra says, yes, we are investigating rumors of people being taken or killed in these parts. And then she looks at you nervously. Her voice lowers. The Milden farmstead a few hours further down the road has lost a daughter. Just disappeared, and their eldest boy has found slaughtered in their field. Mander and I are fearful, but we can't bring ourselves to leave our farm. This is our home. Well, lady, we will try our best to get to the bottom of it all. Then, as time goes on, if they get into combat, I roll the dice and I really literally write about. I swing at the lunger. 1d20 plus 4 equals 8. Yeah, darn. I think that I missed. Eventually, this is one of my more early ones, but basically I just would roll and tell them what the result was. I wouldn't do the math in the script, but and I filled a couple of journals like this, and I would play as long as I needed to. I would date them so I knew when I was doing it, and then I'd start another one when I was done with that one. This is 2007, so this is quite a long time ago. And I said what time I started the session and on what date, and put the initiatives down, everything. So that's one of the ways I play solo when I'm not on camera. I didn't think that would translate well to camera. If you want to watch me play a campaign doing that, leave it in the comments below. I'll try it. But that was how I solo role played, and it worked for me. Man, it worked, because I like to write fiction. So I've been writing fiction since middle school. So finding that example of play was kind of like a great mix between gaming and writing fiction. I would come up with what the characters say and dialogue and all that, and it just really scratched a lot of itches for me. If you don't feel that you have a writer's mind and that you don't think that you would do that, obviously, like I said, this is just how I do it. But you might find something that clicks for you in these different methods that I use, and if you don't, that's fine too. At least you'll know what doesn't work for you, right? And I think also, I think in every gamer there is a frustrated writer. I really believe that. Even if you don't think you can write, I think anyone can write. I mean, I teach creative writing in my high school, and the ideas that come out of my kids are just amazing. And sometimes they have trouble getting down the page, and sometimes they can write it out like they've been writing for years. But I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is, listen, you can do it. You can write a story. And the thing is, for solo play, you're writing a story that you like. You don't have to please anybody else. Yeah, I put my stuff out on the internet to share with you guys, but if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't have to watch. Or if you do, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool, and then you follow on the adventures of my characters and you dig what I'm doing, that's great too. But ultimately, solo role-playing game is about imagination, and that's paramount. I watched a solo video on how to solo role play the other day, or no, maybe it was in his solo toolbox, and it said creativity is paramount. And to a certain extent, I agree. I think creativity scares people, though. Some people just don't think they're creative, or that's what I've learned over the years. They feel like they're not creative, even though I think they are. I think they should give themselves a chance, but ultimately it's imagination. We all have an imagination, right? And I know people say that as you get older, your imagination goes away or you lose touch with it, but not gamers. Not gamers. We live in our imaginations a lot of the time. Our imagination is our greatest asset. So I would say, get that imagination back if you've lost it. But role-playing games are one of the best manifestations of imagination that we have access to. So by all means, man, just use your imagination. You got it. It's in there. And if you lost it, no, you didn't. It's just buried. Dig it up. And then, of course, just have fun. Solo role-playing is about having fun. If the way I play doesn't jive with you, obviously, don't play that way. If you play the way that you play and you're having fun, great. But if you're playing the way you're playing and you're not having fun, go out there on YouTube, look up other solo RPGing videos and see how other people are playing. And maybe one of those ways will resonate with you so that you can sit down at the table, pull out your dice, get out your imagination, and just start playing a game that you love. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Just have fun. I have fun every time I solo role play on my channel. And some videos get more views than others, so that means some people are digging it and some people aren't, or it doesn't resonate with people. That's fine. I'm just out there sharing this with people, and I'm having fun. And that's ultimately what solo role-playing games are all about. Having your kind of fun the way you want to have it. So, if you have anything to add to this, or you have any comments, or you have any questions, arguments, kudos, whatever, leave in the comments below. So thank you for listening to me ramble on about solo role-playing, and hopefully you took something of value from this video. And so till next time, keep on rolling dice and playing games, solo if you need to, or if you don't want to. Thank you once again for all your support of my channel. And until next time, keep on rolling dice and playing games. Magehammer out.